My name is Amara, and if you had told me 2 years ago that I'd end up in the middle of a full-blown family inheritance drama involving my boyfriend's father, I would have laughed, sipped my iced coffee, and said, "Please, my life isn't that interesting." I used to think family drama was something that only existed in movies or those long WhatsApp voice notes aunties send at 2 a.m. Turns out, I was wrong. Very wrong. I met Ethan on a random Thursday that felt like every other Thursday, too hot, too noisy, and somehow too slow at the same time. We were both stuck in line at a small cafe, the kind where the air conditioner barely works and the smell of burnt toast clings to your clothes. He made a joke about how the cashier looked like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. I laughed, loudly, too loudly. He turned, smiled, and said, "Well, at least somebody here still has joy." That was it. That's how it started. Ethan was easy to love. Not perfect, but steady. He had this quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need to prove anything. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, it mattered. But if there was one thing he didn't like talking about, it was his father. The first time I asked, he shrugged and said, "We're not close." That was it. No elaboration, no dramatic backstory, just a wall I didn't push. At least not then. Months passed, and I became part of his life in that soft, gradual way. Weekend visits turned into overnight stays. I knew his favorite meals, his annoying habits, the way he hummed when he thought no one was listening, but I still didn't know his father. Until one evening, everything changed. We were sitting on his couch eating takeout. The room smelled like fried rice and pepper sauce, and there was a faint hum from the ceiling fan above us. His phone rang. He froze, not dramatically, just still, like his body had decided not to breathe for a second. "Who is it?" I asked. He glanced at the screen and muttered, "It's him." I didn't need clarification. He picked up. "Hello?" Pause. His expression shifted. Confusion first, then something heavier. Something worried. "I'll be there," he said finally, and hung up. That night, we drove in silence. The roads were mostly empty, the streetlights flickering past us in long stretches. I could hear the low rumble of the engine, the occasional honk in the distance, and Ethan's fingers tapping nervously against the steering wheel. "What happened?" I asked softly. He swallowed. "My dad, he's in the hospital." Hospitals have a smell you never forget, a mix of antiseptic, fear, and something faintly metallic. We walked through bright white corridors that felt too clean, too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest. When we entered his father's room, I saw him for the first time. He looked smaller than I expected. Thin, tail connected to machines that beeped steadily, rhythmically, like a reminder that time was still moving, whether we wanted it to or not. Ethan stood at the doorway for a moment. Then he stepped inside. "Dad," the word sounded unfamiliar coming from him. His father opened his eyes slowly. "Ethan," he said, voice rough. His gaze shifted to me. "And you are?" "Amara," I said, stepping forward. "I'm his girlfriend." There was a brief silence. Then he nodded, like he was filing that information away for later. "Good," he murmured. The next few days blurred together. Hospital visits, quiet conversations, long silences. I watched Ethan navigate something he clearly wasn't prepared for. There was tension between them. Years of it, thick and unspoken. You could feel it in the air, like humidity before a storm. Sometimes they talked. Mostly they didn't. One afternoon, I stepped out to get coffee. When I came back, I stopped just outside the door. I could hear voices, his father's voice, weak but firm. "There are things you don't know," Ethan's voice. Tighter than usual. "Then tell me." A pause. "I've made mistakes," his father said. "Big ones." I hesitated. Something about that conversation felt private, but before I could move, I heard my name. "Amara seems like a good woman." My breath caught. "She is," Ethan replied, quietly. "Then you should listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you." I didn't hear the rest, because just then, a nurse walked past me, and I stepped aside. By the time I returned, the room was silent, too silent that night. Ethan barely spoke. We sat in his car again, the dashboard lights casting a soft glow on his face. "What did he say?" I finally asked. He shook his head. "I'm not sure yet." That answer didn't make sense. But I didn't push. A week later, his father passed away. It was early morning, the kind of morning where the sky is still gray and everything feels unfinished. Ethan got the call. He didn't cry, he just sat there, still. The funeral was crowded. Family members I had never met. voices layered over each other. The smell of perfume, sweat, and dust mixing in the heat. Everyone had something to say. Everyone had a version of who his father was. Some praised him, some whispered, some avoided eye contact entirely. That was the first time I realized there was more to this story than I understood. A few days after the funeral, we were called to his father's house for the will, Ethan said. His tone was neutral, too neutral. The house itself felt heavy, like it was holding onto secrets. The living room smelled faintly of old wood and something stale, like memories that hadn't been aired out in years. We sat with a lawyer, a thin man with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. There were others there, too. A woman in her late 40s, sharply dressed, arms crossed tightly, two younger men who looked uncomfortable. Ethan leaned toward me and whispered, "My half-siblings, half-siblings." That word landed harder than I expected. The lawyer cleared his throat. "We are here to read the last will and testament." His voice droned on, formal and detached. But then, Ethan Carter, my heart skipped, "is to receive the primary residence." The room shifted. I felt it before I saw it. Tension sharp, immediate. The woman stood up. "That's not possible," her voice cut through the room. "He abandoned us for years, and now he gets the house?" Ethan stiffened. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. "Of course you didn't," she snapped. "You just show up at the end, and suddenly you're the favorite." The argument escalated quickly, voices rising, accusations flying. I sat there, feeling like an outsider in something deeply personal and deeply broken. Then the lawyer raised his hand. "There's more." The room fell silent. "There is a condition." My stomach dropped. Ethan must choose whether to accept the inheritance or decline it in favor of dividing the estate equally among all children. Silence, heavy, uncomfortable, all eyes turned to Ethan. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at me just for a second. But in that second, I saw everything: confusion, ego, hurt, and something else, fear. That night, we sat in the house, the same house he might inherit. It was quiet, too quiet. "What are you going to do?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. "I don't know." We walked through the rooms. Each one felt like a piece of a puzzle we didn't fully understand. Then we found it. A small study, dusty, forgotten, and inside a box. Inside the box were letters, old, yellowed, tied together with a faded ribbon. Ethan picked one up. Hands trembling slightly, he opened it, and as he read, his expression changed. "What is it?" I asked. He looked at me, eyes wide. "He didn't abandon them," he said. "He was pushed out." Letter after letter told the same story: manipulation, lies, family politics that went deeper than we imagined. His father had tried to come back, tried to reconnect, but something or someone had stopped him. And suddenly the will made sense. The next day, Ethan called a meeting. Everyone was there. Tension hung thick in the air. He placed the letters on the table. "You deserve to know the truth," he said. What followed was messy, emotional, raw, denial, anger, tears, years of misunderstanding unraveling in real time, and then something shifted, not completely, but enough. In the end, Ethan made his decision. He looked at his siblings, at the house, at the past, and then he said, "We share it." It wasn't perfect. Nothing about that situation was, but it was something, a step. Months later, things are still complicated. Family dinners are awkward, conversations are careful, but there's progress, slow, fragile, real. Sometimes I think about that first day in the cafe, how simple everything felt, how small my world was. I smile, because now I know family isn't simple. It's layered, messy, painful, but sometimes it's also worth fighting for. And as for Ethan, he still hums when he thinks no one is listening, only now there's a little less weight behind it, and a little more peace.